Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, towards the end of the chapter that we read today, we get a conclusion to a larger section that started in chapter 8. And if we could summarize this section by one statement, we could say it could be summarized this way. It's not about me. It's not about me. And Paul would include himself in that. Here he considers those who were had who were wanting to eat meats offered to idols. And he basically tells them, that's not always the appropriate thing to do, especially if other brethren or sisters come and see you eating that meat, even though you know that it's just meat. An idol's nothing, and you're just eating meat. The fact that it was offered to an idol doesn't change the molecular structure of the meat. You're just eating meat, even though you know that there's nothing special about that meat, and you can eat it without even thinking about the idol. Still, someone else who maybe came out of a lifestyle of idolatry might see you eating the meat and then be tempted to eat the meat themselves. And because of the fact that they are so used to eating meat as though it was offered to an idol, they might actually mix in idol worship in their life. And Paul says, you know what, even though you have the liberty to engage in eating this particular meat, even though there's really inherently nothing wrong with it, still you should abstain so that you don't cause your brother or sister to stumble. And then he uses his own example in chapter 9, where he talks about the fact that he does this all the time. He has the right to take or to be supported by the churches that he ministers to, but especially at the church at Corinth, he forewent that privilege and say, you know what, I don't want to be supported by this church because I don't want them to think that I'm just doing this for the money. He talked about the fact that he was all people, or all things to all people. If he was around Jews, then he would follow the law so as not to offend them. If he was around people who were not Jews, then he wouldn't act as a Jew so much. He would still, of course, live under the law of Christ, but he was able to basically adjust his actions, adjust his decisions, and the things that he participated in based on the people that he was around, because his ultimate goal was to share the gospel and to have the gospel submitted to them in a way that they would be able to accept it. And then he goes on to talk about in chapter 10 to avoid idolatry at all costs. And it seems disconnected from the context, but it actually fits in well with the context, because again, he's encouraging people who can't eat meats without thinking about an idol to not do that. And he's re-emphasizing the fact that if you have that problem, don't eat the meat, because you don't want to on one hand be eating the Lord's Supper and thinking about Christ, and then turn around and then eat meats thinking about some idol. And so he encourages them very strongly, don't get mixed up in idolatry. You know what happened back in the wilderness wanderings when the Israelites did so. Even though they had so many things going for them, they still fell. Just because you have a lot of things going for you as a Christian, spiritual things, you too could fall by getting mixed in with idol worship and having this conflict within your heart. But then he concludes in verse 31 through 33, where he says, whether then you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of the many, so that they may be saved. And so here he's saying, you know what, it's not about me, it's about glorifying God, and it's about considering what will be beneficial to my brothers and sisters in Christ. And that should be our mindset as well. It's very easy for us to get in the mindset of, well, if it's something that is lawful and it's something that I want to do, then why don't I just do it? Seems pretty simple. It's lawful, I want to do it, so I should do it. Paul is saying, no, that's not true at all. We should always be considering first what will glorify God and what will be beneficial to others. And that should be our first concern. Not that we can't ever do anything that that we want to do, but that we always put first what will glorify God and what will benefit others. And that's the attitude that we ought to have impressed on our minds and on our hearts. And so as we try to consider what activities we'll get engaged in, especially activities that might have some type of theological tie to it, we should all the time be concerned about glorifying God and benefiting others. And so as we do our reading today, let's focus on that. Let's think about that. What are some of the activities I plan on getting involved in today or in the upcoming week? Will these things just be just for my own self pleasure or having things my own way? Or am I really going to be considering what will glorify God, what will honor Christ, and what will benefit my brothers and sisters in Christ? These are definitely things that we should take seriously and things that we can be encouraged to think about as we do our reading today. So with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.